Hello. Hello. Welcome to this afternoon's exciting session that we have. My name is Bill Higgins, and I'm the Executive Director of the California Association of Councils of Governments. And I'd like to welcome you to MetroTalks, which is an ongoing series of public forums that seed and exchange ideas about how the Bay Area can be better. And today I would like to think it's about how California can be better. CalCog is a proud sponsor of today's session, and it's a collaboration with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and WTS, which used to be the Women's Transportation Seminar, now just WTS. And at CalCog, I'll just add that we also have our own Leadership Academy, and we have invited our past and present classes to join us here in the conversation today. I'm looking forward to this conversation because there's often a lot of questions and a lot of good dialogue. Today's conversation is about women leading California into the future and how that is necessary because we have so much farther to go to get a balanced leadership representation, not only between men and women, but with all races and backgrounds. And this problem has been, of course, impacted as we all have been under the COVID pandemic and the impacts it has had on all of our lives, whether it's unemployment, working schedules. A lot of these impacts that were identified in the report by WTS called the Glass Ceiling Effect, a longitudinal study. And I'd encourage you to look at it. I think they'll be putting that up in the chat as we go along. I have a quick couple of housekeeping items. Number one, I wanted to introduce many of you to how you can answer questions, and we will be using, it's just coming onto the screen right now, a tool called Mentimeter. That's MENTI meter. And staff will also be monitoring the YouTube feed for comments. But I wanted to kind of introduce you to the Mentimeter. So what I'd like you to do right now is type in a new window or tab in your browser. And I'd like you to type in menti.com. That's MENTI.com. And when you get to that page, you'll be asked to enter a code. And the code I want you to enter is 4115. 3630. That's 4115 3630. Give you a second to do that. Again, you're going to, just because I know that I talk fast and I type slow, well, I see some of you are starting to join and ask that first question, but it's Menti, MENTI.com and 4115 3630. And we're asking you where you are from, and you can go ahead and log in and state where you're from, and we get the changes here in real time. We got a lot of people from outside the Bay Area, so that is perhaps not surprising given our Leadership Academy participation. All right. I'm going to give a couple more minutes for that, and then I'm going to ask you. Actually, I'm going on it right now. Thank you. Before you type this answer, I'd like you to think of what the root word is. Don't add an ly or an ing to the word, but the root word. I'd like you to type in a day that comes to mind when you think about International Women's Day. It could be any word. So far, we have leadership. I think I was told you could even try entering more than one word. I think you can do up to 3, if I remember what they told me correctly. If you do that, we should form a word cloud. So it could be about what you think about International Women's Day, or an issue you think is important. We see leadership. Finally, I like that. Diverse, and we're getting more undervalued. Powerful. That was the word that I thought of. Go get them. I like the enthusiasm. Let's see, struggle. I'll give you a couple more minutes to you, and you can, if you agree with one of the words, you can retype it in, and I think it will get bigger if I'm familiar with how word clouds work. If you agree with one. There's a lot of dispersion in the words. We're not seeing strong, leadership, powerful. I like those three words that are stronger, and you can see that there's a number of different words that are there. The last thing we wanted you to play around with this a little bit, because after this, we're going to open this up to open questions on this tool. It's called Ask Me Anything. And if you, as the audience, or as the talk is going on, if a question comes to your mind that you want to ask one of our speakers, just type it in at that moment. And the rest of you should monitor this, because if you like one of the questions or agree with it's a good question, you can give it a thumbs up, and then that will be elevated for the moderator. So again, staff will be monitoring this page as well as MTC's social media pages. Sorry for my phone call. And then we'll get to it. They'll be monitoring all the different channels. And with that, it's time for me to stop and for us to turn over. I'm happy to have our friend from WTS who will be moderating today's session. And Itzel, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Itzel Moreno Rosas. I'm a civil engineer at Jacobs and a WTS board member, and I'm honored to be moderating this panel on International Women's Day. I want to welcome everyone to this year's first MetroTalk, where we will come together to reflect and think critically about how the communities that make up the 9-county Bay Area respond together to our historic challenges. It's also a critical time for lifting up equity based on a shared vision of just and fair inclusion in a Bay Area where everyone can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. We are excited to continue these conversations with two perfect guests for today's conversation on women leading California into the future. Two groundbreaking leaders in MTC, Therese McMillan, ABAG Executive Director, and Dina El-Tawansy, Caltrans District 4 Director and MTC Commissioner. First, I'll introduce Executive Director McMillan, who worked for 25 years at MTC before her 2009 appointment by President Barack Obama to serve in the U.S. Department of Transportation, where she ended up serving as acting FTA administrator before taking the position as LA Metro's planning chief in 2016. McMillan has long been active in the Women's Transportation Seminar, WTS, and served as president of the San Francisco chapter in 1989 and 1990. She was named WTS National Woman of the Year for 2016 and has the distinction of being named Woman of the Year for 3 WTS chapters: Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, and San Francisco. Next, I present Director El-Tawansy. Director El-Tawansy is the Caltrans Director for District 4, which covers the Bay Area. When she was appointed in 2021, El-Tawansy became the first Arab and Muslim American woman to serve at this level, where she leads a staff of over 3,500 while managing a $2 billion budget of in-house and oversight investments. Director El-Tawansy got her Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Cal Poly Panoma and a Master of Science degree from Long Beach State University in Construction Management. Thank you both for joining us today on 2022 International Women's Day. With that, we'll move on to the main event, the Q&A. I do want to quickly remind the audience that we have a Q&A box and the Mentimeter where you can ask your questions for later discussion. All right, since it is International Women's Day, my first question is, what are the benefits of having women lead? And Therese and Dina, either of you can start the discussion.
Great. Well, I'll jump in, and thank you, Itzel, for having the honor of moderating this session, and to Bill and the others and Kinam for helping to pull this together. Well, you know, women make up half the planet, so we can start with that we, you know, have a great percentage representation of what's before us and how to deal with it. But I would say there's a number of pluses that having women lead, contribute to, and part of it, and I said it only partly in Just About Half the Planet. It's important to have leaders that represent the people, right? I mean, folks want their leaders to be a mirror and reflection of them, of their achievements, of their struggles and whatnot. And so you need a mix. And I think that's really pretty foundational as to why it's important. I think the other thing that is critical to think about is there are distinctions in how we view the world. One of the things that was really, I think, exciting about seeing the word cloud that happened at the beginning was seeing words like mother and daughter, right? I mean, a huge part of, not of course for everyone. So I want to start out with, not making a broad, representation there. But as women, we all had mothers, right? I mean, that's why we're here. And many of us are mothers. And that brings a different perspective. It brings a different perspective of accountability, a different perspective of relationship, a different perspective on love, which I think at the end of the day, when we put aside all our professional attachments, that really gets at the core of the humanness part of our lives. And, when we come to our work, we come as a person. We don't come as a job. And I think women in particular have a keen sensibility to that reflects in our leadership styles and our leadership experiences. So I want to turn it over to Dina and love to hear what she has to say too.
Thank you, Therese. And I agree with everything that you said. To the point that you're making about being a woman and a mother, I recently had a conversation with my assistant, Cecilia, and she said something that was very profound as we were talking about our team. She said, I view my team as I view my own kids. And she's a mother of 4, in the sense that I need to identify what each team member needs to be successful, and I need to provide that. I thought that was really a good, profound way of looking at it. Women bring into the equation compassion. They have a lot of collaboration skills, and they're really good at also multitasking, which is something that we can wear so many different hats and be successful at all of them. I think a big important thing that, having women leadership does, it also provides the pathway for other women that would like to get in leadership positions. And it assures them that there is a path and that you can do it. Others have done it, and you can certainly be the one sitting at the helm as well. There's a lot that women bring to the equation, and that's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both for answering that and giving us different perspectives. Adding to that question, I want to continue saying, being a woman in a male-dominated industry, I think it's fair to say that many of us, including myself, have struggled with imposter syndrome. And I want to ask, have you ever felt imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you navigated it? And imposter syndrome is defined as feeling like you're surrounded by people who are more talented or capable than you.
I can try to jump in and answer that. So I certainly did at many points in my career. And I think that it's something that, looking back, as you do have these moments of doubt of whether or not I'm capable of this job, whether or not I'm going to be able to succeed in it. And I think this happened to me a few times when I was transitioning from one position to another, or to the next level, I should say. As I started thinking more about it, you start doubting, am I doing the right thing? Is this right? Am I going to be able to handle this? But really what happens is, what we fail to think about often is that we are transitioning from being the top expert in whatever you were doing at the time to the next level. And then you still have to work your way up in the next level. And as you do that, you need time, you need experience, you need learning skills, and you need to really engage more in that. So that has been my way of navigating through that when it does rise. But yes, there are times when definitely I've experienced that.
I thought about this quite a bit, because when I was looking at the questions ahead of time, I actually had to ask, so what do we mean by imposter syndrome? I guess it must be a generational thing. I wasn't sure. But now that I've thought about it a little bit more, maybe I kind of offer a different take on it. When I think about an imposter, I think about someone who's pretending, someone who's not real, right? Which is a little bit different than the question of, well, I'm the real thing, but am I the best? Can I be the best? Am I putting on myself constraints because I'm looking through a window of what would I say, sort of limited confidence, right? And I think that women, I've heard this, and I have to agree that in my experience, it's often the case. When we're put in a position of challenging ourselves and saying, can I take on this new task? Can I apply for this new job? Can I walk in and, demand a raise, or whatever the case may be? That it's been characterized, and I might get the percentages wrong, but it makes the point that for men, they often say, I'm 40% there, I got this, right? Whereas with women, we tend to be far more self-critical, to say, oh my gosh, if I'm not 90% there, I'm not ready. And I think it might arise, and again, it's very important not to make broad generalizations, but in my experience, I think there is a sense that perhaps because women in the professional workspace were behind, right? I mean, the numbers say it, and particularly in the STEM fields and whatnot, there just hasn't been the presence. Since we had to work harder, since we had to prove ourselves more, I think there's often been that sense that we lift up the expectations of ourselves at the outset at a much higher level. And that is good in some respects, because I think we bring more to the table, and communicate that to our teams and the like, but it can't be so much to the point it holds us back because we think we can't do it as well as someone else. So, if the imposter syndrome to some degree is that levying of this excessively self-critical veil that makes it hard for us to take risks, that makes it hard for us to feel that we're confident to walk the edge, then yeah, I've been there. I've been there and had to learn. I was incredibly fortunate to have a mother who I saw walk those lines. My whole career, just an incredible person that overcame a lot. So I had a role model of someone who did that. But, often that's part of the challenge. Sometimes women don't have the role models that they need to make them feel that, the confidence is there.
Yeah, Therese, I think you explain what imposter syndrome is better than Google could. we have higher expectations for ourselves. I agree with that. And thank you for sharing that. Our next question for younger women, what would you say to a woman early in their career who may feel discouraged by compounded barriers and social pressures and just everything that is going on in the world right now, but hopes to one day lead an organization like you do? And either of you can start this.
Well, I'll start. There's a lot actually in that question. And I'll start with sort of the young part of it. I have two daughters, and so I have a very sort of personal perspective on this. In some ways, I think it's easier for young women to see themselves capable of it, much like we were talking about before, like capable of moving forward. On the other hand, I just get a sense that in some respects, whether it's social media that has this, intense, um, atmosphere of you hear it with teenagers and the like, that there's always this sort of self-critical, comparative, competitive type of environment that sort of been that's created an atmosphere that I certainly didn't have when I was growing up, that I've worried about with my daughters. And that when you feel that when you're young, before you even get to be a young adult, that shapes you. And I think that there is very definitely a gender bias in that type of pressure in that social media world, that at least that I've seen. So that's just one piece of it. But I think on a more, not to be so down, another part of it, I think though, is be patient, right? I tell this to my daughters too. I didn't start my first job, at MTC as a scrub, fresh scrub face 25-year-old little planner going, I'm going to be the executive director in 20 years. I mean, that just wasn't what my perspective was. It was really more about, I want to be here to do the best job I can, right? And when I have proven that I can do the best job and that I have made an impact and contributed, then I'm going to be ready for the next space. And then after that, the next space. So I'm very much brought in a climbing stairs perspective to my career. And again, I think part of it that I've seen is that there's this impatience, right? That somehow, and again, I think sort of the media sort of wraparound sort of my daughters grew up was that there's this sense of, everyone should be entitled to get everything they want tomorrow. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. So, I'm kind of bringing in sort of that mother perspective, raising two daughters, but as well as what I see sometimes with young professionals coming in, that there's this impatience. And it's like, no, you learn a lot from experience and from doing. And sometimes that takes some time. So that would be, my response.
I definitely agree with what Therese said. And I would add that, doing the best that you can at the position that you're in and preparing yourself for the next step. I mean, you have to have the mindset of, what can I contribute more to the success of the organization I'm working on? And what can I do to build on that success? The other thing I would also add, and I think, as you get yourself ready, opportunities will open up. Opportunities come when you're ready for them and when you're ready to take the next step. But the other thing I want to also add is, be a little adventurous. Step outside your comfort zone. A lot of us are often afraid of taking on assignments that are outside really our comfort zone. But expanding that comfort zone really helps us grow. And, the more you do that, the more often you do it, the more your growth rate will be higher and your opportunities will also expand. So just step outside your and then stay focused on task. There are times when you hear things from others that may be discouraging. You hear something like, oh, you're not going to get this job because you're a particular race or color or gender, or, kind of, not to discount, some of this, but I think it's really important to focus what you're here to accomplish and achieve. And once you do, a lot of that noise kind of fade away in the background, and you no longer hear it. You only hear the noise that helps you get better and helps you improve, and the constructive feedback that you need for your growth. So I think a combination of stepping outside your comfort zone and taking advantage of all the opportunities that present yourselves to grow in your career would be really helpful.
And just to add to that, because I think, Dina, you just hit so much on a really important aspect in terms of stepping out your comfort zone, is also learning to feel that sometimes you need to take risks. And if you're feeling stuck, right, in your job, maybe you need to move on. Maybe you need to, stretch and look for a different job, even if it might be, not advancing, but maybe just laterally moving so that you have a different experience, you have a different team, you have a different set of adventures and opportunities. So, that's something that I learned later in my career. I mean, I was lucky enough that I was able to advance, at MTC, but it really wasn't until I was in my 50s and went to work for the federal government. I went, whoa, there's a whole lot other stuff out there and a lot more to learn. And yeah, don't get stuck.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. I'm learning a lot, and I hope the audience is as well. I think some of the key points is do the best job that wherever you're at right now, do the best job you can. Get ready for the next space and be patient. So thank you for telling us that. I think we're gonna move in a different direction now with the questions. Who inspired you to be a leader, and do you have any mentors currently?
All right, I'll maybe try to answer that question first. I think it starts, for me personally, it started in my own family. My dad is a big proponent of women and education and career, and he's always been really a driving force in my life. He's always been the kind of person that encouraged me to take risks and to apply for jobs, and even at the times when we were going through some hardships, financial hardships, he would never spare any expenses when it came to my education and my career. And I think that has been very inspiring and definitely was a big factor in me pursuing positions. But also, I've had a lot of good role models around me, and I've been very blessed to work for a huge organization that really has so many successful people and so many good examples to follow. And one of the things I noticed, working for Caltrans for the past 24 years, is that you never knock somebody's door to ask for advice and they turn you down. I've had the pleasure of asking so many people for advice, and really although I never had formal mentors, I had so many informal mentors and so many people that can guide me when I needed guidance. And I think that really helped me a lot and opened so many doors for me. I continue to look also at my peers, and I think that's a big part. I mean, Therese for me is an inspiration with her great history and her career. And as you look at your peers, you also start learning a lot, from your peers. And I think we are here to support each other in this big transportation family. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities there also to be utilized.
I was having problems unmuting. I would not be where I am today except for mentors. I mean, they're almost too many to count. And every step of my career, I can highlight the folks who, and as Dina said, when asked, offered, only the best that they could, but also, I'm so eternally grateful, took an interest in me, whether I was an intern, at UC Davis or the first year employee at, MTC. I mean, when I joined MTC, the executive director, Larry Doms, took a personal interest in me, which was phenomenal. And as my first job, I didn't even know how special that was. And I first was like, oh, okay, let's go to that conference together. I mean, it was really remarkable. And I think what it instilled in me, Itzel, is also the responsibility I feel to be a mentor now. That reach back, that one element of a leader is reaching back for and helping to pull up the next generation. That's something that matters a lot to me. I think, as the executive director of the agency and whatnot, I maybe see myself as a mentor, but as Dina said, I've got a circle of folks that I can rely on, particularly a circle of women, to, talk through and, bounce off ideas or share the frustration or drink that glass of champagne for the accomplishment that was done. And it's important to have that circle of support. That in and of itself is also a core element of mentorship, is the non-judgmental support network that you can have to lean on when things are good and also when things are challenging.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing that. I hear that. Having family, having a good circle, having formal and informal mentors are all important. And thank you both. I know you guys are both giving back, even now, having this discussion with me today and the audience. We really appreciate that. And since you guys mentioned leadership, next question, describe your leadership style and how you motivate others. Is it different from how you've observed men lead?
I'll be quick and hit on a few things. I have a very collaborative leadership style. I always have. In part because, and it maybe kind of ties back to that confidence level. It's like I was never going, I know the right answer. Okay, here we go up the hill. It was really more, all right, hey, let's talk about, what is the problem? What options do we have? What are some lessons learned? So in a funny way, that as we were talking about before, maybe that sort of kind of self-critical role actually is quite helpful in fostering collaboration, because there's that sense going in, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I might be in a position as a leader to have to make maybe the final decision or take the final risk, but I want to learn from my team. I want to get as much information as I can outside of what might be in my brain. And I think that also, for all the reasons we talked about with your first question, is something that women, I think, instinctively, have, and not to do broad generalizations, because some people are supremely self-confident from the outset. But I think that that idea of teaming, which is a variation of family, which is a variation on knowing that one of my favorite sayings is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's something that definitely is a reflection of my leadership style. And, I can just say from my own experience, I think has served me well in being a leader of people, not a leader of abstracts.
I want to say that was great. I had to write that down. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah, thank you. Dina, do you have something to add, to share? Any additional comments for that question?
Yeah, let me just make sure you're hearing me okay, because it seems like, a lot of what Therese was saying, I could not hear. It was coming in broken on my end. So I hope the connection is okay. But yeah, I would say that that leadership, my leadership style really varies with the different situations that I have to work with. There are times when I am more of an autocratic leader that has to make a quick decision, dealing with some emergency things that we have to deal with. There are times when I engage my entire team and ask for their input, and that is more often than not. I think it's really important to rely on the expertise of all those that are working with you. And sometimes I use the coaching leadership style where I may know the answer to something, but I just work with my team members to kind of coach them to the right answer. And generally speaking, what I try to be is to really model the way as a leader and to lead by example, and to have open communication with my team at all times, and collaboration is a huge part of that, as Therese mentioned. I think that having the right leadership style at the right moment is very important. I would say that I've observed how I motivate others. I really motivate people by really listening and considering their input in everything that I do, especially my team. I've observed that, you're asking if that's different from men leaders that I've observed, but I think that a lot of the leaders have similar traits. I've seen a lot of men leaders in my circles that have very similar traits to that. So I think being honest, being transparent, being open with my team, and really value their input. We all bring to the table different things, our experiences. You bring something to the table that I would not be able to bring. So everybody's input is valuable. And then finally considering the final decision, as Therese mentioned, at the end of the day, the final decision lands with me. But considering all those input and making sure that we drive to the right decision is something that I usually do.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think you both mentioned having a collaborative style, and something that you said, knowing when to switch within the different leadership styles. I think that goes back to how we were saying that women know how to wear different hats, and that just resonated with me. So thank you. We have one more question. When you began your career, did you see yourself in the leadership role that you're in now? And I think Therese mentioned she did not see this when she started MTC. But if you guys have anything else to answer to that question.
I think it does go back to the, well, let me just say this. Having had this incredible mentor that was my mom, who went from, raising 3 kids, and staying at home, to going back and getting her master's degree in education, and then ultimately becoming a superintendent for special education for Los Angeles Unified School District, was just a phenomenal impact and role for me. And I think I knew, let's put it this way, I knew that if I worked hard and worked honestly for what I wanted, I could achieve what I wanted. And as Dina pointed out, depending on where I was in my, life, at one point it was like, I want to be a working mother that can successfully do both things. And that was a lot. Investing in that was a lot of time. So to me, that was a huge accomplishment in my career, being able to balance both of those things, acknowledging the sacrifices that went along with it was huge. But then later, as things kind of sorted out in my life, the ability to have the capacity and room to rise to the top, which, as Dina will know, can sometimes be a lonely place, but to have the bandwidth, and importantly the experience, to be a leader. Working for the Obama administration was like an incredible opportunity that if I hadn't jumped over the cliff and done that, probably wouldn't be in the position I am right now. So a lot of it was being open to the opportunities that Dina said, that there will be windows of opportunity that come your way. And sometimes you're not the architect constructing the door, but when you see another door open, you need to have the confidence to walk through it. And I think, for a lot of people, that's, at least for me, that was sort of more the path that opened up to where I am today.
Thank you, Therese. That was great. I think going back to women today, knowing when they see the door open, walk through that. Thank you. Dina, do you have anything else to add? Sorry, Dina, I think you're on mute. Oh, I think we lost Dina. I think we'll give her a few seconds, see if she comes back. Oh. I think she's gone, Therese.
She may come back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did we want to go on with this question, with these questions that are coming up? How do you help develop team members and nurture teamwork?
Okay, and I'm sure Dina will join back in, and she can add to this. One of the important things in building your team that I've learned over time. So one of the things I also want to stress with all of the observations, we have the benefit of sitting right now and looking back. But look, I made a lot of mistakes too, and learning from those mistakes also made me capable, I think, of being a better leader, is learning from your mistakes. And one of the things that was really important for me to learn with building a team was meeting people where they are. And really importantly, recognizing that your team member is a person, it's not a job description, right? And so recognizing that and being able to, as a leader, be able to say, what is it that we're trying to accomplish for your agency, accomplish for your community, whatever the anchor point is. What is that? Then, look at the team that you may have. If you're starting from scratch, you get to go out and kind of put it together. Most of the time, you've got folks that are there, and just say, how does my team's capabilities, their aspirations, their abilities match with getting to the goal? And then if you see some gaps or some challenges, then ask the question, and again, preferably in a collaborative say, how can we make those work? Is it adding new team members? Is it training team members to reach their full potential? Is it maybe knowing that team member A should be in team member B's box, and being able to do a switch that's available? But it starts with, meeting people where they are, looking to what you need to do, seeing where gaps are, classes gaps analysis, and working to build that. And I think when people know that you are approaching them first as a person and not as a job description, that builds incredible commitment. And I hate to use the word loyalty. I mean, that's for golden retrievers, but a sense of ownership and pride, I think, in their work that becomes really essential in being able to, again, go far together. Yeah.
Thank you. I see that we have a Dina back.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I think I had some internet issues.
Yeah, that's fine. Hinam, is it okay if we bring the question back up? We started with the Q&A from the audience now, Dina. And the question that we are currently discussing is, how do you help develop team members and nurture teamwork?
I think it starts with recognizing the different talents that team members have, and then building on that. As I mentioned earlier, every person brings to the table something that's different, and recognizing what my team members have and what they need in order for them to be able to step in a leadership position is a big part of that. And then, as the opportunities lend itself, allowing people the opportunity to perhaps act and take on different assignments that helps develop their career path. So just building a deeper bench in terms of what we have as potential future leaders, I think is something that we need to consistently work on, and at all levels of the organization, really, middle management and upper level. So just making sure that we're constantly providing those opportunities for coaching and for trying different assignments and growing in them. This would be a big focus.
Thank you. I think you both touched on the fact that we need to know where the people stand and what their strengths and weaknesses are. Thank you guys for sharing that. Next question from the audience. What was your childhood ambition? That's a fun one.
Well, it wasn't to be a transportation planner, I'll tell you that. Childhood ambition, oh my gosh. It was either to be a famous poet or a fantastic singer in a, rock band. So, I mean, that was definitely, when you sort of think about, what would you like to do that would be exciting and fun? I say that with, a bit of levity, but, I think when you get to the point of wanting to, enter the world, which is kind of beyond childhood, I think for me, most of the time it was to be in some position of service, even if I wasn't exactly sure what that was. Once I knew that I wasn't a good enough singer to lead that really amazing rock band. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Therese, because definitely I didn't think I was going to be working in transportation. That was not something that I thought about as a child. My childhood ambition actually evolved, through times, and there were times that I grew up as a child. I grew up in Egypt, and Egypt is a big tourist country. And, I really wanted to be a tour guide because I loved all the history and all the, the monuments, and it's so magnificent. So, for a big part of my childhood, I thought I was going to become a tour guide. And then later in life, I started evolving into thinking about engineering, which is a lot of folks in my family. I have 5 uncles, all of them are engineers. So definitely engineering was a big part of our discussions. At first, I thought I was going to become an architect, not a civil engineer, but that kind of evolved also with time. So it kept on changing. There were times when I wanted to be a teacher, so I was all over the map, but I'm glad to be serving in transportation. But you hit a point that's really critical in my thinking all along, Therese, and that is service. I have always known that I really thrive in the service world, and what can I do to serve has always been a part of my thinking. Even at times it was subconscious. I didn't even think that I was thinking about that, but it definitely is a big part of why I'm doing what I do now and why I'm in the public sector.
Thank you, guys. From what I'm hearing from both of you guys is that transportation is not seen as fun. All right, a question for Dina. Can you speak about the layers of identity you carry as a woman, a Muslim, and an Arab American?
Yeah, happy to do that. Yes, definitely. When I think about that, I think about, growing up where I grew up and the role of women where I grew up, and definitely, it grew with me that, as part of the Muslim society and part of the Arabic society and also the Egyptian society, um, women plays a very important role. And whether we like it or not, as Therese mentioned at the very beginning, you talk about we are half the society. We are the mothers that, we are the traced kids, and really help establish the culture and all that. As a woman, I've always felt empowered with people around me, honestly, and this has been, as I progressed into positions, I didn't have a whole lot of other women of my background that were in high positions to kind of help me navigate some of this. As a matter of fact, I didn't have a whole lot of women leaders around me, I should say. But I'm hoping that it's an opportunity for me to give back and to help people of my similar background to understand that there's a path forward and there's a way to get to leadership position. I think it's a responsibility that I carry now that I am here. But when I was coming up the ladder, I didn't really have a whole lot to look at in terms of encouragement in that area.
Thank you. I think like we were discussing earlier, it's important to see people similar to us, to me and to other young people that are coming up in this industry. All right. We have a question for Therese. What about your layers of identify as an African American woman leader in transportation? What can you share about navigating corridors of power with your identities?
That's a really very personal question, again, in a good way. And look, everyone approaches it, I think, in part from your personal experience. I was I was going to say a product. I was the daughter of a mixed race marriage. My dad is white, my mom is African American, and they got married at a time, 1957, when it was illegal in vast areas of the country to do what they do. And I mean, I didn't even really fully absorb that for years, in part because I grew up in Southern California, in Los Angeles, probably one of the most diverse, and again, through the civil rights era and whatever, the and my mom's experience being the first Black woman to do various things. I guess I had the privilege, because both my parents came from very poor backgrounds, both of them. And so I also, I recognize now, looking back, how their hard work and their struggle was intended to make it easier for me. And as I grew into an adult, as I grew into a professional, the one thing I never did was take for granted how their hard work and as Dina, as you said, education was just core. And, there was never a question that if there was something to help me achieve my dreams, that they wouldn't be behind me. And I think for me, recognizing that privilege made me appreciate more and more how lucky I was and how important it was to recognize the disparate gaps that existed for so many other African American children. I mean, my mother worked in the inner city, in very close to where my grandma lived, and I helped her and went her to school, where she sometimes would stay extraordinarily late, committed to helping these and largely African-American children at the time in the neighborhood in Southwest LA, tried to lift them up and achieve in areas where they did not have the privileges I had. And I saw that working with my mom. So it was a very personal journey for me, recognizing that I needed to build on that luck, that privilege, that opportunities where things had opened for me in order to help bring more people through them. And I think that that's what certainly drove, my commitment to equity, even though the definition of that or the characterization of that or what that meant certainly changed when you think about it, right? The 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and where we are right now. But it was always there. And I would say the more I've been in the field, the more I've felt that I have to do as much as I can to try to close gaps. And that my personal experience in some ways, made me to the service of the community, want to do the best I can, because that's part of the giving back and acknowledgement of what I was afforded.
Yeah, thank you. I think both of you guys have an extraordinary background that allows you to come in with a different perception. So thank you guys for sharing that. I think we're about to wrap it up. Is there anything else that you guys want to add or think that will add of value to the audience today?
I guess I would just say that for all the young women, middle-aged women, older women, whatever, we are a powerful circle. And supporting each other is going to be supporting each other is critical to the success of any one of us. And whether it's, again, in family, whether it's in community, whether it's in the job place, that's something that's really important. And at the end of the day will be the biggest lever we have to bring down the barriers that unfortunately continue to exist.
And I would just add to that, it's important to do it at every level. You don't have to be in a leading role in order for you to support others. I mean, we are bringing onto our organizations a lot of new and young people that are joining us. And, it's really important to extend that hand and give back. As Therese mentioned, in some ways we were privileged. In some other ways, we were not. And I think recognizing that and helping others as much as we can is something that we definitely need to all do and continue to support each other. And happy Women's Day, everybody.
Yeah, thank you both for being here, for talking to me, having this conversation in front of the audience. Thanks the audience for putting up their questions. And I do want to just remind everyone that a recording of this session will live in perpetuity on MTC's YouTube page. So please join our MTC's mailing list and follow us on social media to find out about upcoming MetroTalks and other events. Just a great thank you again to WTS, MTC, CalCog, and of course, Therese and Dina. And happy International Women's Day, everyone.
And thank you, Itzel, for moderating.
Of course, thank you guys. This was awesome.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.